Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the massive alien ships appear on the view screen. His hands gripped the armrests of his command chair as more and more vessels materialized around them. The Krillian fleet was enormous, their dark metal ships bristling with weapons that could turn his ship into space dust in seconds. "How many are there now?" Jake asked, his voice steady despite the growing knot in his stomach. Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her communications console, her face pale. 37 ships, Captain. All of them are larger than us." Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, trying to maintain contact with Earth Command. But the Krillians were jamming their signals. Tony Blake, the ship's security chief, moved closer to Jake's chair. His hand rested on his weapon, though they all knew it would be useless against an entire alien fleet. "Sir, I don't like this." The meeting was supposed to be peaceful. Jake nodded grimly. The diplomatic mission had seemed simple enough when Earth Command assigned it to him. Make contact with the Krillian Empire, establish trade relations, and show them that humans could be trusted partners in the galaxy. The Krillians had agreed to meet at these coordinates, far from any human colonies. Now Jake realized why they had chosen such a remote location. Dr. Amy Collins stood near the science station, her eyes wide with fear and fascination. She had studied alien cultures for years, but this was her first real encounter with a hostile species. "Captain, the Krillians are known for their aggressive nature, but I never thought they would set up an ambush like this." The main view screen flickered, and suddenly a massive alien face appeared. The Krillian commander had dark, scaled skin and yellow eyes that seemed to glow with malice. When he spoke, his voice was deep and threatening, filled with clicks and growls that the ship's translator struggled to convert into English. "Human vessel, you have entered Krillian space without permission. You claim to come in peace, but we know better. Your species spreads across the galaxy like a disease, taking what does not belong to you." Jake stood up, straightening his uniform. He had dealt with difficult negotiations before, but never while surrounded by enemy warships. "Commander, we came here at your invitation. Earth sent us to discuss trade and cooperation between our peoples." The Krillian's laugh was harsh and cruel. "Cooperation? You misunderstand, human. We invited you here to eliminate a threat before it grows too large. Your species has expanded too quickly, claimed too many worlds. It is time to stop your growth. Permanently." Lisa's hands flew over her console as she tried to send a distress signal, but the jamming was too strong. "Captain, I can't reach Earth Command. All our communications are blocked." Tony moved to the tactical station, his training taking over despite the hopeless situation. "Shields are at maximum, but they won't last long against that many ships. We have maybe 10 minutes before they overwhelm our defenses." Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. His crew was looking to him for answers, for a way out of this trap, but he could see no escape. The Krillian fleet surrounded them completely, and their weapons were charging for attack. "You have exactly 60 seconds to surrender," the Krillian commander continued. "Drop your shields, power down your weapons, and prepare to be boarded. We will make your deaths quick if you comply." Amy stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "Captain, maybe we can reason with them. My research shows that Krillians respect strength and honor. If we can prove our worth somehow. There's no time for that," Tony interrupted. "They're not here to talk. This whole thing was a setup from the beginning." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Lisa was still trying desperately to break through the communications jamming. Tony was checking their weapon systems, though they all knew it would be suicide to fight. Amy was pulling up everything she could find about Krillian culture, hoping to find some way to negotiate. The captain had led them into this trap, and now it was his responsibility to get them out. But as he watched the Krillian ships moving into attack formation, he realized there might be no way out at all. 30 seconds, humans," the alien commander growled. "Make your choice." Jake was about to order his crew to prepare for battle when Lisa suddenly looked up from her station, confusion on her face. "Captain, I'm detecting a new ship on sensors. It's very small, maybe the size of an escape pod." Tony frowned at his tactical display. I see it too. It just appeared out of nowhere. Where did it come from? The tiny vessel was unlike anything in their databases. It was sleek and silver, with curves that seemed almost organic. Compared to the massive Krillian warships, it looked like a child's toy floating in space. Should we try to contact them? Lisa asked. Before Jake could answer, the Krillian commander's voice boomed across the bridge again. You have run out of time, humans. Prepare to die. The alien ships began to glow as their weapons charged. Jake felt his heart racing as he realized these might be his final moments. His crew looked to him one last time, waiting for orders that could not save them, but then something unexpected happened. The small silver ship began to move, gliding gracefully between the massive Krillian vessels like a dancer weaving through a crowd. It was heading straight for the UES horizon, and Jake had no idea if it was friend or foe. What are they doing? Amy whispered. Jake stared at the view screen, watching the tiny ship approach. Whatever happened next, he knew their lives were about to change forever. The diplomatic mission had become a death trap, and now their only hope might be coming from the most unlikely source imaginable. The Krillian weapons were almost fully charged. The small ship was still approaching, and Jake Morrison had seconds to decide what to do next. The small silver ship came to a stop directly between the UES horizon and the closest Krillian warship. Jake Morrison watched in amazement as the tiny vessel seemed to hover there, completely still and silent. It was so small that one of the Krillian ships could have crushed it without even noticing. Captain, the ship is opening some kind of communication channel, Lisa Rodriguez reported from her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she tried to establish contact with the mysterious vessel. Before Jake could respond, a new voice filled the bridge. It was soft and musical, completely different from the harsh growls of the Krillian commander. The voice belonged to a female, and she spoke perfect English with a slight accent that none of them could identify. Greetings, human vessel. I am Zara of the Viridian Collective. I have been monitoring your situation. Tony Blake moved closer to the captain's chair, his hand still resting on his weapon. Sir, we don't know anything about these Viridians. This could be another trap. Jake held up his hand for silence. Something about the voice made him want to hear more. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Horizon. We appreciate any help you can offer, but I'm not sure what you can do against that many ships. There was a pause before Zara spoke again. I understand your concern, Captain Morrison. However, I must first attempt to resolve this situation peacefully. May I speak with the Krillian commander? Dr. Amy Collins looked up from her research station, excitement in her eyes despite their dangerous situation. Captain, I found something about the Viridians in our database. They're described as a peaceful species, mostly scholars and artists. They rarely get involved in conflicts. Jake nodded and turned back to the communications. You're welcome to try, but I don't think they're interested in talking. The Krillian commander's face reappeared on the main view screen, his yellow eyes now focused on the small ship floating nearby. When he saw it, his expression changed to one of complete dismissal. What is this pathetic little vessel? The commander growled. Are you so desperate that you call for help from children? Zara's voice remained calm and polite. Honored Krillian. Commander, I am here to request that you cease your aggressive actions against the humans. They came here in peace, and violence is not necessary. The bridge of the UES Horizon fell silent as everyone listened to this exchange. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. This unknown alien was actually trying to talk the Krillians. Out of their attack, the Krillian commander's laughter was loud and mocking. You dare to give orders to the Krillian Empire? Your entire ship could fit inside one of our cargo bays. What could you possibly do to stop us? I am not giving orders, Zara replied gently. I am making a request. The humans have done nothing. To deserve death, please allow them to leave in peace. More Krillian ships began to turn their attention to the small vessel, their weapons now pointing in its direction. Jake felt his heart sink as he realized this brave stranger was about to be destroyed along with his crew. You want to protect these humans? The commander snarled. Then you can die with them. All ships, prepare to fire on both vessels. Lisa looked up from her station, her face pale with fear. Captain, the Krillians are targeting both us and the small ship. Their weapons are almost fully charged. Tony checked his tactical display and shook his head. There's nothing we can do. Even if we had full power, we couldn't fight that many. Ships. Jake stood up, feeling helpless as he watched the situation unfold. This unknown alien had tried to save them, and now she was going to die because of it. He opened a channel to the small ship. Zara, you need to get out of here. There's no point in both of us being destroyed. Her response surprised him. Thank you for your concern, Captain Morrison. However, I believe there may be another solution to this problem. Before Jake could ask what she meant, something changed in Zara's voice. The gentle, musical tone was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Krillian Commander, you have refused my polite request. I had hoped this could be resolved peacefully. The alien commander laughed again. Peaceful? You are about to learn what happens to those who interfere with Krillian business. Fire! The Krillian ships began to glow as their weapons reached full charge. Jake gripped his chair, knowing that in seconds both his ship and the small vessel would be nothing but debris floating in space. But then something incredible happened. The small silver ship began to change. At first, it was just a shimmer around the edges, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Then the shimmer spread, and the ship seemed to grow larger, though Jake's instruments insisted it was still the same size. Captain, are you seeing this? Lisa asked. Her voice filled with wonder. Amy had abandoned her research station and was now staring at the view screen in amazement. The ship is doing something to space itself around it. It's like it's bending reality. Tony's tactical display was going crazy, showing readings that made no sense. Sir, my instruments can't get a clear reading on that vessel anymore. It's like it's not entirely in our dimension. The Krillian commander's expression had changed from mockery to confusion. What is happening to your ship? Zara's voice came through the communication channel again, but now it carried a quality that made everyone on the bridge feel like they were listening to the calm before a storm. I tried to ask nicely, she said simply. Now I must insist. The small ship finished its transformation, and suddenly Jake understood that they were no longer looking at a simple vessel. Whatever Zara had done, her ship was now something far beyond their understanding of technology. The Krillian weapons fired, sending streams of deadly energy toward both the human ship and Zara's vessel. Jake closed his eyes, waiting for the end, but the end didn't come. Instead, there was only silence, and when Jake opened his eyes, he saw something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. The Krillian weapons had simply stopped. The energy beams hung frozen in space as if time itself had been paused. And floating calmly in the middle of it all was the small silver ship, completely untouched. Impossible, the Krillian commander whispered. Zara's voice was still gentle, but now it carried the weight of unimaginable power. Commander, I asked you politely to leave these humans alone. Now I'm going to show you why that would have been the wiser choice. What happened next was unlike anything Jake Morrison had ever witnessed in his years of space travel. The small silver ship began to move, but not in any way that made sense according to the laws of physics. He knew Zara's vessel glided through space as if it were dancing, weaving between the massive Krillian warships with movements so smooth they seemed almost like art. The ship would appear in one location, then somehow be somewhere else entirely without crossing the space in between. Captain, this is impossible, Lisa Rodriguez said, her voice filled with awe. The ship is moving faster than light, but it's not using any kind of drive system we can detect. Tony Blake stared at his tactical display, which was showing readings that made no sense. Sir, my instruments are going crazy. That ship is somehow in multiple places at once. Dr. Amy Collins had given up trying to understand what she was seeing, and was simply watching in amazement. This technology is beyond anything in our database. It's like she's rewriting the rules of space and time. Jake kept his eyes on the view screen, watching as Zara's ship approached the first Krillian vessel. The alien warship was enormous, easily 100 times larger than her tiny craft, but size no longer seemed to matter. The Krillian commander's voice boomed across the communication channel. now filled with anger and fear. "What are you doing? How are you moving like that?" Zara's response was calm and patient, as if she were explaining something simple to a child. "I am disabling your weapons, Commander. I would prefer not to cause any permanent damage to your vessels or your crew." As she spoke, her ship touched the hull of the first Krillian warship. There was no impact, no explosion, no visible effect at all, but suddenly, every weapon on that massive vessel simply stopped working. "Impossible!" the commander screamed. "No single ship can disable a Krillian dreadnought." But Zara was already moving to the next vessel. Her ship flowed through space like water, reaching the second Krillian ship in seconds. Again, she touched the hull, and again, all weapons went silent. Jake watched in stunned silence as this pattern repeated across the entire enemy fleet. One by one, the most powerful warships in the galaxy were being neutralized by what looked like a child's toy. "She's not destroying them," Amy observed, her scientific mind still working despite the impossible situation. "She's being careful not to harm anyone." Tony nodded, his respect for the unknown alien growing. "A warrior who shows mercy to her enemies. That takes real strength." The Krillian ships began to panic. Some tried to flee, but they found their engines no longer responded to commands. Others attempted to ram Zara's ship, but she moved out of the way so easily it was like they were standing still. "All ships retreat," the commander ordered desperately. "Fall back to safe distance." But it was too late. Zara had already reached more than half the fleet, and those ships could no longer move or fight. The remaining vessels found themselves trapped, unable to escape or attack. Jake opened a communication channel to Zara's ship. "How are you doing this? What kind of technology are you using?" Her voice came back, still gentle and musical despite the incredible display of power. "It is not technology in the way you understand it, Captain Morrison. My people have learned to work with the fundamental forces of the universe rather than against them." The Krillian commander's face appeared on the main view screen again, but his expression had changed completely. The arrogance and cruelty were gone, replaced by pure terror. "What are you?" he whispered. "What do you want from us?" Zara's ship came to a stop directly in front of the command vessel, so close that Jake could see detailed patterns on its silver hull. When she spoke, her voice was still kind, but there was no mistaking the power behind it. "I am exactly what I said I was, Commander. I am Zara of the Viridian Collective. I wanted you to leave the humans alone. You chose to refuse." The alien commander's scaled face had gone pale. "The Viridians are scholars and artists. They do not interfere in the affairs of warriors." "We are scholars and artists," Zara agreed. "But we are also the guardians of peace in this galaxy. We rarely act directly, but when we do, it is for good reason." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had assumed the Viridians were just another peaceful species, but now he realized they might be something far more significant. Lisa looked up from her communications station, her eyes wide with realization. "Captain, I'm reading about the Viridians in our historical database. There are stories, legends really, about a species that ended wars just by appearing. But I thought they were just myths." Amy was nodding excitedly. "Yes, I remember now. Ancient civilizations across the galaxy have stories about small, gentle beings who could stop entire fleets with a touch. But the stories are so old, everyone. Assume they were just fairy tales." Tony's tactical display showed that every single Krillian ship was now completely disabled. Not destroyed, not damaged, just unable to fight or flee. It was the most precise display of military power he had ever witnessed. "This is impossible," the Krillian commander said again, but his voice had lost all its strength. "No one has this kind of power." Zara's ship began to glow with a soft, warm light. "Commander, I am going to restore minimal power to your ships. You will be able to move and return to your territory, but your weapons will remain disabled until you are far from this system." "Why?" the commander asked, his voice filled with confusion. "Why spare us? We came here to destroy you and the humans." There was a pause before Zara answered, and when she spoke, Jake heard something in her voice that touched his heart. It was sadness but also hope, because every species deserves a chance to learn and grow. The Krillians were not always a warrior race. Perhaps someday you will remember what you were before you chose the path of violence. One by one, the Krillian ships began to move again, their engines restored just enough to carry them away from the battlefield. They moved slowly, like wounded animals, their pride as shattered as their weapons. The commander's face appeared on the screen one last time. "This is not over, Viridian. The Krillian Empire will remember this day." Zara's response was gentle but firm. "I hope you do remember, Commander. I hope you remember that there are forces in this universe greater than violence and fear. Perhaps next time you will choose differently." As the last Krillian ship disappeared into the distance, Jake realized that everything had changed. The diplomatic mission had become something far more important than trade negotiations. They had just witnessed the intervention of beings who might be the most powerful species in the galaxy. And somehow, impossibly, these beings seemed to care about humanity. The space around the UES horizon was now completely quiet. The Krillian fleet had disappeared into the distance, leaving only debris and the memory of their crushing defeat. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, trying to process what he had just witnessed. "Captain, the small ship is requesting permission to dock," Lisa Rodriguez reported from her communications station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the excitement in her eyes. Tony Blake immediately stepped forward, his security instincts taking over. "Sir, I recommend caution. We don't know what this being is truly capable of." Dr. Amy Collins looked up from her research station, her face bright with curiosity. "Captain, this could be the most important first contact in human history. The Viridians might be the key to understanding our place in the galaxy." Jake nodded slowly. After what he had just seen, he knew they couldn't simply ignore this opportunity. "Grant docking permission. But Tony, have a security team ready just in case." "Already on it, sir," Tony replied, though they all knew that conventional security would be useless against someone who could disable entire fleets with a touch dot. As Zara's ship approached the docking bay, Jake found himself wondering what she would look like. Her voice was clearly female, but beyond that, he had no idea what to expect from a species that could bend reality itself. "Captain, the docking is complete," Lisa announced. "The ship has attached to docking bay 3. Jake straightened his uniform and checked his appearance in the reflective surface of a nearby console. Meeting the representative of such a powerful species was not something he wanted to do while looking unprofessional. "Amy, Tony, Lisa, you're with me," he said. "Let's go meet our savior." The walk to the docking bay felt longer than usual. Jake's mind raced with questions and possibilities. What did the Viridians want? Why had they saved the humans? And most importantly, what would happen next? When they arrived at the docking bay, the airlock was already cycling through its sequence. Jake positioned himself in front of his team, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. The inner door opened with a soft hiss, and Jake got his first look at the being who had just saved all their lives. Zara was small, even smaller than he had imagined. She stood no taller than a human child, with delicate features that seemed almost fragile. Her skin had a pale, luminous quality, and her large eyes were a deep blue that seemed to hold depths of knowledge and experience. She wore a simple white garment that flowed around her like liquid, and when she moved, it was with the same graceful precision her ship had shown in battle. Despite her small size, there was something about her presence that commanded immediate respect. "Captain Morrison," she said, her voice even more musical in person than it had been over the communications system. "Thank you for allowing me aboard your vessel." Jake stepped forward, unsure of the proper protocol for greeting a being who could reshape space and time. "The thanks are all ours, Zara. You saved our lives. I don't know how we can ever repay you." Zara tilted her head slightly, studying him with those large, expressive eyes. "There is no debt, Captain. I did what any civilized being should do when faced with unnecessary violence." Amy stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her nervousness. "If you don't mind me asking, what you did out there was incredible. How is such technology possible?" It is not technology as your species understands it, Zara explained patiently. My people have learned to work with the fundamental forces that govern reality. We do not fight against the universe, we flow with it. Tony remained alert, his hand near his weapon despite knowing it would be useless. Why did you help us? What do the Viridians want from humanity? Zara's gaze moved from Amy to Tony, then back to Jake. When she looked at him, Jake felt something strange happen. Her eyes seemed to brighten, and a subtle smile appeared on her delicate features. That is a very interesting question, she said. Her attention now focused entirely on Jake. The Viridian Collective has been observing your species for some time. We have watched your expansion into space with great interest. Observing us? Jake asked. For how long? Since your first steps beyond your homeworld, Zara replied. Most species, when they develop space travel, become either conquerors or victims, but humans have shown something different. You have courage, but also compassion. You fight when necessary, but you also show mercy. She stepped closer to Jake, and he caught a faint scent like flowers blooming in a spring garden. Your behavior during the crisis today was particularly fascinating, Captain Morrison. You remained calm when faced with certain death. You tried to protect your crew even when there was no hope. You showed concern for a stranger who offered to help. Jake felt his cheeks growing warm under her intense gaze. I was just doing my job. No, Zara said softly. You were being yourself. And I find that self very attractive. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Lisa's mouth fell open. Amy blinked in surprise. Tony's hand tightened on his weapon in confusion. Jake stared at the small alien, wondering if he had heard correctly. I'm sorry, did you say attractive? Zara nodded, her smile growing brighter. Among my people, we are drawn to those who show true courage and leadership. Your species calls it charisma, I believe. You have it in abundance, Captain Morrison. Thank you, Jake said, unsure how else to respond to such an unexpected compliment, but Zara wasn't finished. She moved even closer, now standing directly in front of him. When she spoke, her voice was warm and filled with an emotion Jake couldn't quite identify. In fact, I find you so attractive that I would like to make a formal proposal. Amy leaned forward, her scientific mind racing. A proposal? Like a treaty between our species? Zara's large eyes never left Jake's face. No, Dr. Collins, a marriage proposal. The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear the hum of the ship's life support systems. He stared down at the small alien, wondering if something had been lost in translation. I'm sorry, a what? He managed to say. A marriage proposal, Zara repeated calmly. According to Viridian custom, when we encounter someone who embodies the qualities we most admire, we make our intentions known immediately. Life is short, even for beings like us, and true connection is rare. Tony stepped forward, his protective instincts taking over. Captain, I think there might be some cultural misunderstanding here, but Zara shook her head. There is no misunderstanding. Mr. Blake, I am formally requesting that Captain Morrison consider joining with me in a permanent bond. Your species would call it marriage. Jake felt like the universe had suddenly shifted around him. First, he had been saved from certain death by a being of incredible power. Now that same being was proposing marriage to him in front of his entire crew. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Zara's smile was gentle and patient. You do not need to answer immediately, Captain, but I hope you will consider it. The joining of our species could benefit both our peoples greatly. As Jake stood there, looking down at this small, powerful being who had just saved his life and proposed marriage, he realized that his simple diplomatic mission had become something far more complex than he had ever imagined. The conference room aboard the UES Horizon had never been so quiet. Jake Morrison sat at the head of the table, staring at the cup of coffee in his hands while his crew tried to process what had just happened. Zara sat calmly across from him, her large blue eyes watching everyone with patient curiosity. Dr. Amy Collins was the first to break the silence. She had pulled up every piece of information about Viridian culture she could find in the ship's database, but there wasn't much to work with. Captain, I need to understand something, Amy said, looking directly at Zara. When you say marriage, do you mean the same thing humans mean? A permanent partnership between two individuals? Zara nodded gracefully. The concept is similar, Doctor. Collins, though, there are differences. Among my people, bonding is considered sacred. When two beings choose to join, it is for their entire lives. We do not have divorce or separation as humans do. Tony Blake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. That's a pretty serious commitment to make to someone you just met. I understand your concern, Mr. Blake, Zara replied with a gentle smile. But I have not just met Captain Morrison. My people have been observing your species for many years. I have watched recordings of human leaders in crisis situations. The captain's responses today confirmed what I already suspected about his character. Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her communication console, which she had brought into the meeting. I've been trying to contact Earth Command to report the situation, but I'm not sure how to explain this in an official report. Jake finally looked up from his coffee. Lisa marked the communication as classified for now. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we involve Earth Command. Amy leaned forward, her scientific curiosity taking over. Zara, can you tell us more about Viridian bonding customs? What would such a marriage involve? Zara's expression became more serious as she explained. Viridian bonding is both emotional and mental. When two of my people join, we share thoughts, feelings, and experiences. It creates a connection that goes deeper than physical attraction. You mean telepathy? Tony asked, his hand instinctively moving toward his weapon. Not exactly, Zara said patiently. It is more like shared consciousness, two minds that remain separate but become connected. Among humans, I believe you would call it true understanding. Jake felt a strange mixture of fascination and fear. What would happen to me? Would I still be human? Zara's eyes softened with compassion. You would remain exactly who you are, Captain. The bonding enhances both partners but does not change their fundamental nature. You would gain some of my abilities, and I would experience human emotions more fully. Amy was taking notes as fast as she could write. This could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness and mental connection. The scientific implications are incredible, but what about the political implications? Tony interrupted. If our captain marries an alien, especially one with this much power, it could change everything about human-alien relations. Lisa nodded in agreement. Earth Command would want to study this bonding process. They might see it as an opportunity to gain access to Viridian technology. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. And what about my choice in the matter? Everyone's talking about what this means for humanity, but I'm the one being asked to give up my entire way of life. Zara's voice was soft and understanding. Captain Morrison, I would never force you to make such a decision. The offer stands, but the choice is entirely yours. Can I ask why me? Jake turned to face her. You say you've been watching humanity for years? There must be other leaders you've observed. Zara stood as well, moving to stand near the window. Despite her small size, her presence seemed to fill the room. You are correct. I have observed many human leaders. But today, when faced with certain death, you showed no hatred toward your enemies. You worried about your crew before yourself. And when I offered to help, you immediately tried to protect me from harm. Amy looked up from her notes. Those are admirable qualities, but surely other humans have shown similar traits. Yes, Zara agreed. But Captain Morrison showed something else. When the Krillians threatened him, he did not respond with anger or fear. He responded with determination to protect those under his command. Among my people, this is the highest form of courage. Tony crossed his arms. With respect, that sounds like something you could find in any good military officer, Zara smiled at him. Perhaps, but Captain Morrison also showed mercy toward the Krillians after I defeated them. He could have asked me to destroy their fleet, but he did not. This combination of strength and compassion is rare in any species. Jake walked back to the table and sat down heavily. This is all happening too fast. A few hours ago I was worried about a diplomatic mission. Now I'm being asked to marry someone from a species I didn't even know existed. I understand your confusion, Captain, Zara said gently. Among humans, courtship is a longer process. You prefer to know someone well before making such commitments. Lisa looked thoughtful. How do Viridians normally choose their partners? Is it always this sudden? Viridians rarely choose partners from other species, Zara explained. In fact, it has never happened before in our recorded history. Our bonding process usually involves two members of our own people who have known each other for many years. Amy's eyes widened. So this would be completely unprecedented? The first interspecies bonding in Viridian history? Yes, Zara confirmed, which is why it requires careful consideration from both parties. Jake rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. What would happen if I said no? Would the Viridians still be willing to work with humanity? Zara's expression remained calm and reassuring. Of course, Captain. My personal feelings do not dictate the policies of the Viridian Collective. We would still be interested in establishing formal relations with your species, Tony leaned back in his chair. But if the captain said yes, it would certainly make those relations closer. It would create a unique bond between our peoples, Zara agreed. But that should not be the primary reason for such a decision. Bonding should be based on genuine connection between individuals. Amy closed her notebook and looked directly at Jake. Captain, I know this is an impossible situation, but maybe we should think about what this could mean for humanity's future in the galaxy. No, Jake said firmly. I won't make a decision this important based on politics or science. If I'm going to consider this, it has to be for the right reasons. Zara moved closer to him, her large eyes filled with understanding. What would be the right reasons, Captain Morrison? Jake looked into those deep blue eyes and felt something he couldn't quite identify. I guess I'd need to know if there could be something real between us. Not just political alliance or scientific advancement. Something genuine. Zara's smile was warm and hopeful. That is exactly what I was hoping you would say, Captain. Perhaps we could spend some time getting to know each other as individuals rather than representatives of our species. For the first time since the proposal, Jake felt himself relaxing slightly. I think I'd like that, but I need time to think. And I need to understand what I'd be getting into. Of course, Zara agreed. We have all the time you need. 3 days had passed since Zara's unexpected proposal, and the Youth Horizon had become a place of quiet conversations and careful observations. Jake Morrison found himself spending hours with the small Viridian, learning about her people and her world while she learned about human culture and customs. They sat together in the ship's observation lounge, watching the stars through the large windows. Zara had changed from her flowing white garment into simple human clothes that Amy had found for her, though she still looked distinctly alien with her luminous skin and large blue eyes. Tell me about your homeworld, Jake said, offering her a cup of human tea that she had grown curious about. Zara accepted the cup gracefully and took a small sip before answering. Viridia is very different from Earth. Our cities grow like living things, shaped by our minds rather than built with tools. The buildings change color with the seasons, and the streets flow like rivers of light. It sounds beautiful, Jake said, genuinely fascinated by her descriptions. It is peaceful, Zara agreed, perhaps too peaceful. My people have become so focused on knowledge and art that we sometimes forget about the rest of the galaxy. That is why I was surprised when the collective asked me to intervene in your situation. Jake leaned forward with interest. They asked you specifically, why? Zara's cheeks took on a slightly darker hue, which Jake had learned was the Viridian equivalent of blushing. I may have been volunteering for missions involving humans for some time. My interest in your species was well known among the leadership. So you've been watching us longer than you initially said? I have been studying human culture and behavior for several years, Zara admitted. Your species fascinated me. Most races become predictable once you understand their basic nature, but humans continue to surprise. Dr. Amy Collins entered the observation lounge, carrying a datapad filled with research. Over the past 3 days, she had become increasingly excited about the scientific possibilities of human-Viridian cooperation. Captain, I hope I'm not interrupting, but I wanted to share what I've learned about Viridian history, Amy said, taking a seat across from them. Please, go ahead, Jake encouraged her. Amy consulted her notes. According to the historical records Zara provided, the Viridians have been active in the galaxy for over 10,000 years. They've prevented at least a dozen major wars and helped countless species develop peaceful technologies. We prefer to work quietly, Zara explained. Most species never know we were involved in their development. But humans are different? Jake asked. Zara nodded. Your species has the potential to become either great protectors or great destroyers. The path you choose will affect the entire galaxy. Tony Blake appeared in the doorway, looking serious. Captain, we just received a priority message from Earth Command. They want a full report on the incident with the Krillians. Jake sighed. He had been dreading this moment. What did you tell them? Just the basics. That we were attacked and rescued by an unknown alien vessel. But they're sending a fleet to investigate. Zara looked concerned. Will this cause problems for you, Captain? It might, Jake admitted. Earth Command doesn't like surprises, especially when they involve powerful alien species they've never heard of. Amy leaned forward eagerly. This could actually be perfect timing. If Earth Command is sending a fleet, they could be the ones to establish formal first contact with the Viridian Collective. Assuming the Viridians want formal contact, Tony pointed out. Zara was quiet for a moment, her large eyes distant as if she were listening to something the humans couldn't hear. I have been in communication with the Collective. They are interested in meeting with your leaders. Communication? Jake asked. I haven't seen you use any communication equipment. Viridians can share thoughts across vast distances, Zara explained. It is one of the abilities your people would find most useful. Lisa Rodriguez's voice came over the ship's communication system. Captain, you're needed on the bridge. We have multiple ships approaching. Jake stood quickly, his military training taking over. The Earth fleet? No, sir, these are different. The signatures don't match any human vessels. Zara rose gracefully, her expression calm but alert. Those would be my people, Captain. The Collective has decided to send a delegation. As they hurried to the bridge, Jake felt his heart racing. The simple diplomatic mission that had gone so wrong was about to become the most important first contact in human history. On the bridge, the main view screen showed 3 Viridian ships approaching. Unlike Zara's small vessel, these were larger, though still much smaller than typical human starships. They moved with the same impossible grace that Zara's ship had shown, flowing through space like living things. Captain Morrison, came a voice over the communication system. It was similar to Zara's but deeper, more formal. I am Elder Cathara of the Viridian Collective. We have come to discuss the future relationship between our peoples. Jake moved to his command chair, feeling the weight of the moment. Elder Cathara, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Horizon. You're welcome aboard our ship. Thank you, Captain, but we prefer to conduct this meeting in space. We have prepared a neutral environment for our discussions. The space between. The ship shimmered, and suddenly a structure appeared that defied all understanding of physics. It looked like a building made of light and crystal, floating freely in the vacuum of space. How is that possible? Tony whispered. Zara smiled. My people do not think in terms of possible and impossible. We think in terms of what is needed. Jake looked at his crew, then at Zara. Are you coming with us? If you will have me, she replied. This meeting concerns both our futures. As they prepared to transfer to the impossible structure, Jake realized that everything was about to change. The proposal that had seemed so personal was actually part of something much larger. The future of humanity's place in the galaxy was about to be decided. But when he looked at Zara, he saw more than just a representative of a powerful alien species. He saw someone who had risked herself to save his crew, someone who had spent days patiently answering his questions and learning about his culture. Zara, he said quietly as they walked toward the shuttle bay. Yes, Captain, about your proposal. I'm not ready for marriage, but I would like to continue getting to know you, both as individuals and as representatives of our peoples. Her smile was brighter than the stars outside. I would like that very much, Jake Morrison. And maybe, he continued, we can work together to make sure our peoples become allies. The galaxy seems like a dangerous place, and I think humans and Viridians could accomplish great things together. I believe you are right, Zara agreed. This is the beginning of something wonderful. As they boarded the shuttle that would take them to the meeting that would change both their worlds forever, Jake realized that the smallest alien he had ever seen had not only saved his life and proposed marriage, but had opened the door to humanity's greatest adventure among the stars.